Hi again. I'm in a talkative mood. That was exciting. When I told the person down the road what was going on, they were like, "That's exciting." That's my excitement for the day. um, yeah, I just really that just really bothered me, um, and so I'm glad I did the video. So I'm going to talk about some other stuff. I want to talk about the numbers. I want to talk about the spell. I want to talk about the metaphysical and spiritual side of this too. Um, and if you've been watching me for a while, that shiny nail is there. If you've been watching me for a while, you know a lot of about my life. I feel like I'm a pretty open book. Um, I am really into what I consider multidimensional realities because I went through some really magical things as a kid without anyone explaining it and kind of having to figure it out on my own. And that's why I was saying that about the natural witches, because from my experience recently in watching certain spiritual groups on Facebook and on YouTube, that really, and not just YouTube, I'm hearing more and more stories of this happening in all kinds of religions, all kinds of spiritual groups. And basically, what is being called narcissistic slash codependent relationships. I've come to the realization that all of those are codependent relationships, but as far as how we deal with trauma is differently. And what I've found for myself and for others is that spirituality, I mean, I avoided all the like normal spiritualities and literally like put myself in a type of cult. Um, not not fully recognizing it. I definitely, like, rereading my journals and such, I definitely was aware that something was off, but I was so excited to be connecting to people who I thought were like-minded. We talked about the soul tribe. We talked about the laws of the universe. I've mentioned this before. It was very exciting for me because I already like school and I like learning, and I felt like I was learning about the things that I had experienced, and now there was actually like tangible evidence, and others, others validating my experience. And in retrospect and in rereading my journals, I was so naive and just really eager to fit in and belong. So in retrospect, I think two things straight up, and it could be my fantasy mind. However, I would suspect from the things that I have accidentally done and what I would imagine other accidental, what I call sibyls or magicians or magical people or spiritual, ultra spiritual people or gifted people, um, I would imagine we would be targeted. And I used to think that that was not the case. But I really recognize, I think that, so I'm going to share with you guys some of my theories. And so I get a lot of my theories from TV. I used to watch a lot of TV. I like TV. I think it's kind of fun. It can be, I think it can be like mind relaxing, but for me, it never was totally mind relaxing. Some movies were, but I would always think about things in a different way, and wonder about the writer. I would mostly wonder about the writer and the producers and what was their motivation, so to speak, as to like why this movie, why this story, why this author, all those different things. And I did start recognizing certain programming within TV and movies. Okay. And then I did dabble in drugs when I was younger. I did meth when I was younger. I did cocaine. Some of the meth was laced with heroin, so I've done heroin, but I didn't know that. And heroin has some lasting effects. I've done mushrooms, I've done acid, and I did mushrooms back in the day where you tripped, like your whole point was to trip. Since then, I have microdosed, and that's way more relaxing and way more fun for me, because I feel like even with some herb, I can still experience some really trippy things. And so during even being sober and being not sober, but mostly being not sober or sick, I mean, even when I was little, I got the flu really bad and the wall was moving. It was totally like a hallucinogenic trip. And my brother, who passed away, when he saw me and I was explaining to him what was happening, he said, "It sounds like you're having a trip." And I think I was like 9 or 10 or something like that. But okay, so I think that I've always understood that there's this underlying spell over humanity, over us as humans. And the underlying spell was that we were to believe that we were supposed to come here, work, and not just we, I mean, specifically women, and suffer in joy. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my mom has said to me that that's not reality. When I said, no, it shouldn't be like that. People shouldn't live like that. No, that's not how it should be. It shouldn't be like you be with somebody because they make a certain amount of money. Well, that's reality, and not everybody's happy. It's like, what? Okay, but that's crazy, isn't it? What? Okay, so that one, and then so I see that as affirmation, and this is where what we call the, oh, he must hear the other dog. Yeah. This is the dog god. To me, that's Anput'ah and Hecate, and they both relate to dogs, horses, and magic. Let's see. Hold on a second. Okay, and then the other thing is the hidden magic. The hidden ritualistic magic. So, I mentioned him before, Zach Hubbard, because he really, I had no idea until he came along. I mean, oh, that's the other thing I was going to talk about, is like narcissism, codependency, and how, hold on, maybe he wants to be in the video, but he's not going to be. No. So, okay, the two things. I think the numbers and the underlying spell is to create narcissism and what we call narcissism. But what I would call is people with lack of emotion, because narcissists actually had emotion. The actual deity that narcissism is named after, he was empathetic. And so it's kind of not fair to name narcissists after him, her, this, gay deity is the story. But I don't know, because as I've said before, I think most stories are mistaught, probably even that one. Anyhow, so what happens first is, like, I want to share what I think happens, and then I want to share what the there's so many. That's like, I think this is my gift. He stopped and then he started drinking again. And I just figured he's probably almost done. I don't mind. I just figure it might be a little distracting for you all. But, you know, so are kids. And we make it through. And traffic and all that stuff. Oh, dear. Okay. So there's this underlying kind of like get up and go to work and you don't complain about things. If you do complain, you're a complainer, and that's bad. And being honest is also called complaining. Being honest is called blatant, rude. And it can be, right? I think it can be. I definitely, even with my last video, I was like, was that rude? And I was like, I don't know if it was rude. I'm not trying to be rude. But I do want to start speaking my voice more and not worrying about what people say. Like, I don't care anymore. And I do want to speak up for other people. Like, in that last video, I was watching him and he was just not listening. He had no intention of listening to her. I don't know what was going on with him. He probably got threatened in his job, so to speak. And that's what I mean. Like, you know, or there's the other underlying kind of programming that our world has is virtue signaling, right? I've definitely, that's probably one of my biggest faults. Because I do believe in the, like, be who you say you are. Those have been the most influential people to me. I will admit that a lot of those influential people all have a dark past and all have things that could be questioned by our society today, as far as like rebellious or rude or too honest or, you know. And so these were some things I picked up. I noticed in Malcolm X, like how focused it was on Martin Luther King and Farrakhan and less on Malcolm and in the end. And then, but also some of the truths that are hidden behind Farrakhan and Martin Luther King. Excuse me. And, okay. So you think about the numbers. So as I said before, Zach Hubbard, he's written a couple books, and a great one is 9/11. I think it's 9/11 to COVID. Because for me, what I saw at 9/11 was just how quickly everyone believed everything. And I just thought, you know, come on, it just happened. Over there, it's 6 o'clock in California, so it's 9 o'clock in New York, and they already know who did it. And then I remember, this is one thing where Zach and I don't agree. From my memory, the towers, the news was showing that morning that the towers had gone down that morning, because I was traveling. So when I got home, I wasn't watching the news. I don't watch the news. I haven't watched the news for like 20 years. But whatever news needs to come to me, it always seems to find me. And in this particular situation, it was somebody calling on a answering machine, telling about what happened in New York, and then me turning on the news on purpose to see what was happening. And they talked about how Tower 7s had went down that morning at 7 a.m. And he talks about numbers, and I find it interesting because a lot of people now have information that they fell down at 8 in the evening. And I'm like, what is that about? Because that's not what I remember. And several of my other friends don't remember. So when it comes to the fires, I hear two things. I hear what's happening on this world, and then I hear from the planet. Okay. And so, yeah, a few years ago, the planet told me some of these fires are on purpose and not by her. Okay. So some of the fires in certain places, certain parks, like Yosemite, Mount Shasta, these places have high energy healing. And that's the area I'm in right now. Even where I'm at right now has a very high vibration. So the vibration can be all the vibrations around the planet. So when we say high vibration, in all fairness, what we're talking about is a heightened energy, a stronger one. Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean it's positive, because all vibrations can be manipulated, right? So what I've learned are things like, so the grid. I learned a secret about the grid just recently. I got a download about the grid. That's exciting. But I won't be sharing it here on YouTube because I don't want it to get manipulated, and I'm sure that many other people probably got the similar download. However, so the pyramids were built as an energy field to help connect our minds, because we understood the law of oneness. We understood that even if one person is thinking really malintended, having resentment, any kind of illness, what's the saying? You're only as strong as your weakest link. Well, we didn't just come up with that. That came from somewhere. And it came from the idea of health and healing. Okay? And what we used to practice as a people all the time, every morning, every evening. Okay? And fun was in there. Like partying was in there. But there was the sustained support all the time. So why we might actually be self-medicating and calling it partying is not what they did. They did not self-medicate. They had intentional, purposeful intent, even in the party, which was to have fun and celebrate and uplift each other, right? And have spiritual experiences, because I definitely had some really unique experiences while I was doing drugs and feeling supported, but also it became a bad thing because of my traumas and things I hadn't healed, right? So under a controlled and supported place, like we hear about this with like ayahuasca experiences and peyote experiences, ancient and modern, where if they're facilitated and the people who are doing it are educated, it's very healing. And so these things that bring a very high vibration can also be manipulated to bring a very chaotic, overstimulated energy. And that's what the last, since 9/11, has been about. It's been about watching how humans do several things. Forget, okay, because how many of us don't remember phone numbers anymore? And I used to remember everybody's phone numbers, addresses, names, birthdays, all up here. I didn't have to write it down. I used to be able to remember all my passwords, no problem. Okay. So I actually think in certain social medias like TikTok, I hate to say that, but I think so, and even YouTube and Facebook, I think there's sound behind it that is triggering to parts of our minds and emotions that we aren't actually equating to what we're watching, or just the energy that can be coming through it. Okay, so we have numbers, and from what I've learned, number 9 is the base of all numbers, and then you can split number 9 into different numbers that create angles, and through those angles you can manipulate the mind, the physical body, and the spiritual body. And the people have no idea. Okay. And then the DNA companies, I'm under the suspicion personally that they sell a lot of our DNA. Okay, so the more and more people who do DNA, the more and more people show as to having links to more DNA, right? So say someone like me who's super mixed, my genetics would hold the key to everyone's genetics. I mean, all of our genetics hold the key to everyone's genetics, because according to the stories, and from what I just talked about, the law of one, we're all connected and we're all related somehow or another, whether it's through marriage or actual DNA. Okay. So they are selling this. So our DNA is mostly shipped to Sweden. I think that's right. Or Switzerland. And from what I understand, this virus came from lab techs that have worked in Sweden with DNA. And that I actually think that because they're from another country, because you basically give over your rights, that they can do anything they want with your DNA. I think our DNA is sold. I think certain people's DNAs are sold. And then those people or members of their families are actually part of hidden psychological, emotional, and mental tests. Just like they did with Tuskegee, just like they did with syphilis. And they're telling us that it was syphilis, but we don't know. I think they were doing mind control projects back then. I mean, where stories like fire starter come from, you know, like, and there's been plenty of people, or what's the other one, Men with Goats or something like that was another one where they talked about like the CIA tried to do some mental. So you think they just stopped that? Come on, really? And you think they're going to tell us the truth about what they discovered? And back then I was like, I'd like to be part of that CIA. No, I wouldn't, because stop testing people. Government, you know, stop guinea pigging us. Like, if we're going to be guinea pigs, so to speak, and if we somewhat volunteered for this energy of lifespan, and I think that this is what's happening, this is part of what's happening, and this is why I'm sharing this right now, is that there's a truth that has to come out about what is happening. And so, okay, so we find out there's a vibration over the planet. We find out that the Egyptians built the pyramids for a mental. And then we break down the word governmental, government. It governs the mental state of mind, to govern the majority state of mind. And then these certain plans of commerce and education that will keep the people thinking they are reaching higher education when actually they're part of a program. Because we came in with a very heightened DNA. Why do they say out of the mouths of babes? Because children don't have any filters yet. And they're able to see and feel things that we talk ourselves, that it's not even we talk, okay, it's kind of it's part of the spell. So through the education and through certain social constructs, and I've mentioned this before, I think religion is one of them, where the person will use the law of compensation to make up for what isn't actually clear, isn't explained, or shared, because there's a lot of secrets out there, right? And then we find out, okay, so we're having the cyber, you know, through the web. So I'll be vetting people, because I just don't trust people with magic anymore. I was pretty free and open about a lot of the things that the planet would tell me as far as like how to heal self and others, and I do share most of that stuff. But recently I was told like how we can undo or reweave what's been done to the ley lines and the giant web around the planet, but I can't share it on YouTube. Not yet, anyhow. Where can I share it? Can't email me. I'll have to think about that. I'll post it. Maybe through Etsy. Yeah. Yeah, through Etsy. You can message me through my Etsy store, and we could go from there. I love that, right? Because I do want to offer the new magic that the planet's been sharing with me, and it is new magic. It's not remembered from old because we didn't have to do it then. We didn't need to do it. We had a different magic going on. But in order to, so we have the moon, the number 9. Oh yeah, the basis is number 9. This is my theory because 9 relates to the female, and what I've my personal discovery has been that the greatest first giant lie was that God is a man. And that was not anything that anyone believed before. Because we looked to nature. And only certain species, which is where I actually think gay people and androgynous people had a different status within tribes, could change their actual gender for procreation. And so even though typically people who are same-sex relationship don't procreate, we don't know that for sure. And now we're at a point where people are changing their gender, and so that might mean that like a man who was once a woman could now give birth, right? If he so chose to do, right? I mean, this is what we used to do. This is what, before, a long time ago, procreation was a whole different thing. Okay. There's a lot of information about that, but we used to procreate through our minds and our hearts, and in a like a spiritual dimension. We were present when our spiritual ancestors were deciding if we should come in. This is how I can give some spiritual backing to what's happened with reincarnation, because if the people who are procreating are not actually doing the old practice, then what's happening is so souls that need to come back and heal will come back, and they want to, but not necessarily have gone through the ancestral and spiritual guidance and training that they would typically receive on the other side before they would come to the planet again. Okay, so number 9 relates to the feminine, and if you can divide and reteach the programming of the feminine, the number 9, the swirl that you see in everything. I mean, it's in everything. And they call it the Fibonacci, but I actually think it's 9. And it relates to the feminine. And that's what's being mostly asked, because if we can see that the first initial spell started with silencing the woman and the truth of what we're capable of, and the truth of how we come in, and the truth of our DNA, and the truth of the moon and stars and the sun, and the truth of the planet, and the truth of growing, and the truth of multiplying not only people but crops and housing and finding more water, like we knew how to do that easily without all this extra stuff, without stuff that's actually harming the planet, okay, and ourselves. So once that barrier is broken, then we can start to see the programming of, men know everything, men rule everything, to mothers birth everything, mothers birth everything. So it would almost be impossible that what we call God is a man without a wife and without, I feel that God would show us that on some level in nature to back that so that we can feel really clear and solid in how we then proceed with spirituality in general. And so everything can be misdirected if the first truth is a non-truth. And this is something we all come in with. Most people, not more recently, this is shifting. Okay. And then we can see, because the mother's voice has been silenced, there's trauma created, the allowance of trauma to be created, because I think that circumcision is actually traumatizing to a young child. I don't care what gender it is, because I know in certain countries they circumcise women. Either way, any kind of harm to your genital area as a child is going to create some kind of emotional trauma, okay? And then this is backed with, gender roles that are really pushed on both men and women. And then a lack of real emotional therapy and working through it. There's different ways. There's tapping. So we'll talk about all that. So there's one of the strongest aids to reducing emotional trauma is dancing. That's what the mothers used to teach. Singing is a good way to stimulate your vagus nerve, and also gargling. Okay. We have plenty of natural things for our skin and our hair, like coconut oil and mud and vinegar. These are actually better for your hair than most of the products out there, right? And it doesn't matter really what race you are. These are the best things for our hair. Not wearing certain lotions, like I said before. Well, you haven't heard me say this, but what I've learned, besides jojoba oil, if you can eat it, well, and castor oil, because castor oil is like, don't eat it. But I know you can. If you can't eat it, you probably shouldn't put it on your body. And just think about all the things that we can't eat that we put on our body. Or the things that we might eat that have been changed around into like some cream or perfume, and we put that on our body, we still wouldn't eat it. Probably wouldn't taste that good. But if you can eat it, even if it's one of those type of things, yeah, put that on your body. Put that on your body. Okay. But movement is super important. I do think talk therapy is important. I find the best talk therapy is self-talk therapy. Because if you can put yourself in two places, imagine the other person's feelings, or you put yourself in that other person's feeling, if it was the opposite, that can be extremely healing. Plenty of water, cleaning your gut, and finding art. I think that's my next thing, is sharing art. But finding art and sharing that. So, and then, I like to see your comments. I like to hear your opinions. If you'd like to support me in other ways, you can always PayPal me. If you'd like to book a medium session, because I do mediumship, I've done this for a long time. I now understand that's why I can hear things from the planet. You can email me or leave a message. I prefer an email because everyone can see a message. And then if you have any questions about certain healing things, also touch. I know Reiki is incredibly important in some trauma healing. Oh, certain stones. Yes, you are a crystal. Yes, you do not need crystals. But if you're like me and you like crystals because they're just so freaking pretty and so cool, smithsonite, which happens to be named after Smithsonian, which makes me wonder some things too. But smithsonite, a great stone. Rhodonite is a great stone. These are, they carry love. Things from the angelic realm can help with trauma and healing. The smithsonite is supposed to help the healing in a way that it just happens. Of course, you probably would be more attracted to it if you're already doing the work. It helps you along the way. And then Veracruz amethyst, another one. And I really like labradorite for so many reasons. It's a very protective stone because of its mirroring reflective properties. It actually can bring confusion to certain energies that don't vibrate in the same place as labradorite does. Lemurian crystals. Lemurian crystals, most crystals are Lemurian. Okay. And Atlantean. Let's see what else. Earthing. And your own magical intuition, especially spontaneous and at the moment. I feel like this was all over the place, but pretty solid as well. I'm in a talking mood and a sharing mood. So thanks for watching, and for letting me know what you think or don't think, and for watching, even though they put one of those weird pictures of me in the video. Or this is another thing, you're like, really YouTube? No worries, it's okay. So okay, some of the words, I looked them up today. Fortunate, worthy, love, being, a human being, honorable. Thirsty isn't one of them, but my guess is some of you are thirsty for either this information, for sharing your own stuff, or actually thirsty. We're actually thirsty. And let's see, and doing your rituals or prayers during times that equal 9, like 8:01. Okay, things like that. So until next time, thanks for watching, subscribing, and sharing. Be well.